Hello everyone, this is Emmanuel from EBAN and Brussels, and thank you very much for joining this first webinar of SpaceUp series. This webinar will be hosted by Audra Shallal, founder and managing director of BUS Consulting, also board member of several organizations, NFBAN, the Nordic Female Business Angels Network, Business Angels, the Grandes Ecoles, and also EBAN board member. Audra today will talk about how to craft a killer pitch. As we know, several times, what entrepreneurs talk about is not exactly what an investor would like to hear about. So let's hear what Audra can teach to us and improve our pitch. Audra, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you.
Let me stop my screen. And yes, you're.
Okay, thank you everybody for participating in this workshop. I'm sure that some of you have already pitched to several startups. Some are considering pitching. Some are questioning whether or not they have more things to perfect in their pitch. Other entrepreneurs out there, or maybe even some business angels listening, are probably curious to see what other points of view or ways of looking at a powerful pitch, what different elements another investor may be more wanting to target. Just briefly, I'm involved with quite a few business angel networks. I'm on the board of the Business Angel des Grandes Ecoles, with European Business Angels Network, also with the Nordic Female Business Angel Network in Helsinki. And I was past vice president with the Femmes Business Angels, a women angel network in Paris, and helped develop an angel network in Bahrain, Tenmou. So very involved with the angels, and I teach, manage several entrepreneurship programs in different Grandes Ecoles, and a part of quite a few accelerators for coaching. So what I would like to start with you a little bit is, always it's good to go back to the basics, for some of you who have already been pitching, to whether for your first raising of funds or follow-up funding. Usually we say, okay, what is the purpose of an elevator pitch? Like, why do we have one? Or why, describe in 60 seconds. And usually you'll have, from those who've taken my workshop, where actually I'm not with a screen and in a webinar, but actually being able to be more interactive with my attendees, would tell me. And actually many would say, well, yes, to advertise yourself or to gather interest. But I always say, okay, well, gathering interest, okay, well, that's not exactly enough, because many investors could say, oh, that's very interesting, but some of you might have already experienced that the investors who say it's interesting actually never pursue going further. The same is, just advertising yourself. Okay, that's great. People know about you, but what is the actual real purpose? And the main purpose is to motivate your audience to act. So whether you're targeting shareholders, investors, clients, media, it's motivating your audience to act. When also considering, an elevator pitch for your 1-minute pitch, compared to your 10-minute presentation, I always say that an elevator pitch is basically kind of like your executive summary to your business plan. So your elevator pitch is rather your executive summary for your business pitch of 10 minutes. So usually it's the executive summary that attracts you to want, that you would like your investors to want to furthermore, and to ask for the business plan so that they can decide if they'd want you to come to also their network to see if they can present to more investors. That's why we say that what is there usually like 5 main elements, and to make it most simply, you know, for those to work on constructing a powerful pitch, is that there's 5, and it's the 5 W's. For French, the 5 Q's, but the 5 W's. We'll say, okay, who, what, where, when, and why. Who's behind the idea? What is the idea? Where, how long does it take to get there? Where's the marketing opportunity? And why? Why is actually one of the most important. Why is why so important? And that's where it is like, why do I care? Why am I excited? And that's where the passion comes in. And that's why for many entrepreneurs, we may say that, yes, you know, investors, you know, want to see that passion. And a lot of entrepreneurs will say, well, how do I show passion? Do I show it, you know, through gestures, or how can I show my passion? And that's where the storytelling comes in. And where we want to know that if that this project is something, you know, very important to you, that it's not just that, for example, we don't want aspirin, we want morphine. We want to know that you have a solution to the problem, not just a temporary solution. And where the passion comes in and the storytelling is that sometimes you could have, for example, a project on some new app or something for, let's say, autism, and you could actually be listening to someone pitching about targeting those with autism, and by the entrepreneur actually during the pitch not exactly saying where the whole origin of this whole project came from, makes you wonder a little bit, like, why autism? Why actually does this entrepreneur all of a sudden feel that it's so important? Yes, we can see rising percentage of autism in specific countries, but there's something still that, like, what clenches it? And when you find out later from the entrepreneur by extracting from them, you know, why did you really want to start this project? And you find out actually his story behind why he started developing this project and why autism was important to him, actually then made it more interesting to see where the background came from, where the passion and the interest and want to take it to the next stage. So as I say that there's 5 elements in the elevator pitch: the who's behind the idea, what is the idea, where, how long does it, where the marketing opportunity, when, how long does it take to get there, and why. Now, that's why we always say, sell me on the why. Now, is it about convincing? Because usually you'll hear from attendees, entrepreneurs that say, yes, you want to convince investors to want to invest in the company. But yes, you do, but at the same time, could that sound desperate? If it's so.
Audra, I think, I don't know if it's just my problem, but I cannot hear you.
I can hear.
Yes, I can hear as well.
Can I?
It's good?
I can hear.
Fine.
Okay. So, okay, as I had been telling you about the 5 elements of the pitch, it's also is, why did I skip how? Of course, it's not a W, so it's not one of the 5 elements, but why skip how? Well, obviously, it's too long for 60 seconds. The how is basically for your 10-minute presentation. And at the same time, I also like to show a little bit as an example, a movie trailer. You know, a movie trailer is usually what, 100, 120 seconds, you know, 1.5 minutes. What is their goal? And Usually a lot of my attendees would say, well, the goal is to go see the movie, to make us want to see it. And I said, well, not exactly. You know, it's not just to buy the tickets. Actually, the goal is to act on it. So it's more to leave, wanting the attendees to leave the theater and tell someone about it. And by someone leaving the theater and telling someone about it, who will then tell somebody else about it. Oh, look, there's the next series of Taken 2 with Liam Neeson. You know, it's a great movie coming about. When is it going to be coming out? And that becoming a whole chain of reaction. So that is the specific goal, which is the same thing for you for your pitch to think about. That is to act on it. It's also, you know, giving just enough information, but not enough. Now, you can have some that give pretty good pitches, but later, actually, do they have all the content and to validate it and credible enough? Sometimes I end up seeing that actually the movie trailer, the pitch of the movie trailer was actually more interesting than actually the movie itself. Actually, all of the elements that they chose for that movie trailer actually was better than the movie itself. But that's where it's important also that when you're pitching, is that that you definitely have a workable prototype and some traction before pitching, to make sure you're prepared and you're able to have all of those elements afterwards. At the same time, we say also about that when we're focusing on delivery and not only content, is that in a 1-minute pitch is usually it's preferable to talk in numbers and not percentages, because you will have some investors that are not actually, that may actually want to invest in a sector they don't usually invest in. They want to diversify their portfolio, and they may not be aware of really the size of the market or not. And numbers is easier for investors to quantify in a short time what it means. At the same time, you have basically 3 types of listeners when you're giving your pitch, and you want to make sure that you are targeting all 3 of those listeners. So what are the 3 types of listeners? You have visual, those that need to see the PowerPoint, the whiteboard, they need to see something to be able to better understand and the project. The digital, auditory, and aesthetic. Aesthetic meaning, you know, like some need to kind of see the demo. They want to touch, feel that they can sample something. So each listener needs to be targeted and not neglect one of them in order to be able to get the maximum of feedback as you can. At the same time, we when we're talking body language too, those tending to pitch may have tendencies to look down while speaking, or looking more towards the left, by not bringing in the whole audience. It's important to practice to make sure that you're being able to attract everybody within the audience. At the same time, usually when I say, how do you know you have a good pitch? What gives you an idea that you seem pretty effective? And that's where many would say also that, well, you know, they want a card, ask me for an appointment. But usually, as we say, it's the questions. The more questions you get is showing the more interest. And that's why usually in your 1-minute pitch, if you have an investor actually probing you on your 1-minute pitch about, okay, how could you go into more detail about it, how this actually works, how you're making money, well, then that's a good sign, because it's showing that they want to further more into the project, the how of basically, you know, your business model and more of and more of the detail. So those are just for the main elements of the 5 elements. Now, when talking about the telling a story also is that in your pitch, you can, in just 60 seconds, tell a story, and it can actually be long, because if you're pretty precise and have a good framework, you can be pretty long in your, the 1 minute can actually extend long. So as an example, for example, okay, if you want to put all of those elements within, and meaning you're talking about your mission, team, what's the problem, product, service, technology, market, sales, competitors, milestones, and financing, it sounds like quite a bit, but how can you actually condense it in 1 minute, depending in what situation you're in? Well, for example, we have a mission and a team that is taking us there. Why? We discovered a large problem and solved it with a product or service that has this amazing technology inside. We are going to market and sell it to these customers with these advantages over our competitors. In particular, we are working towards these milestones over the next few quarters. In conclusion, this financing is a great investment opportunity. So basically, within just this story, we have already mentioned the mission, the team, problem, product, service, technology inside, market, sale, competitors, milestones, and financing. The key elements that you need to take it to. I'm going to go back to for more of the moving into the 10-minute pitch, but the elevator pitch, I wanted to show you here this formula where for many of my students, even entrepreneurs who are starting their up another company or not, is that I take them to the basics of going to this formula that is very like a first grader formula, but it helps those to really bring in the specific aspects of the company. And what's very hard is it actually takes quite some time to actually be pretty precise and see how you can be as simple but as powerful of sending that message. And so I have them actually fill in the blanks. And this is an example of your companies in what industry venture, developing what product or services for what market customers. And we solve this pain problem using our technology products. Our team includes X, Y, and Z. Unlike competitors, we offer this dramatic improvement. My secret sauce, what is my competitive edge? And then after is when are you pitching to investors, shareholders, clients, future partner. That's when there's the ask. And what's interesting is that usually I've seen in many pitch events, in quite a few even conferences, matchmaking, entrepreneur investor conferences, is that a lot of the time you still have entrepreneurs that forget to ask. Great presentation, and at the end, they're not saying how much financing they're looking for, or if they're looking for a partner, or why they're here, or are they looking to expand their team. That's actually been very interesting for me to see that we've had quite a few entrepreneurs always forgetting the ask. But this formula actually helps you to make things more concrete. And then by having basically the base of the elevator pitch, you can add your storytelling. You can add a few things in between the lines, but at least it gave you that framework, to help you work from there. And a lot of the entrepreneurs who've worked on this and students realized that it was very hard for them in the beginning to kind of push themselves into like a structured framework, because sometimes they wanted to go out of the box, but then realized that they were moving in kind of in all directions rather than giving a clear message. So they went back and actually did the formula and then started adding to it once they had the more concrete and actually came with some very good 1-minute pitches afterwards. Now, an example also of when, mentioning about your, pitch and kind of it being kind of and like your executive summary to your business plan, is that I had experience where when I was doing a mentoring program with and an entrepreneurship program with one of my schools, the teacher was sort of a mentor and said, you should really pursue this project. And I wasn't, I didn't have in mind really to take this project to the next step. But I thought, why not? What do I have to lose? So I went to London. At that time, I was much younger, so I didn't actually make an appointment before hitting the corporate development team. But I walked into Virgin corporate development team and said, hey, I got a business plan and it's time sensitive, so I need to meet Richard Branson. So people looking at me a little like, okay, you need to meet Richard Branson. Okay, well, obviously, he's pretty booked. Did you even try to make an appointment? No, that's why I'm here. Okay, so they say that obviously he's a pretty busy guy, and they said that look, all those business plans over there in the corner, because this is at the time when Richard Branson liked to receive business plans and kind of see people's ideas, like that stewardess from Virgin Bride, that had developed the Virgin Bride, and he invested in her project, was saying that those are all those business plans he has to look through. So I said, okay, well, fine, I'll leave my business plan here, but I'll come back and figure out something else. But just 3 minutes after I left, they were calling me from the core development team saying like, hey, this is really great. And actually Richard Branson isn't here because he's in his air balloon, because it was the time when he was going around the world in his air balloon. So they said, really, he is not available. But they said, but we were looking at your executive summary, and this is like a really great idea. We do need some more information a little bit about what team is involved, but how can we make this appointment? So again, like, okay, why in 3 minutes do I get this kind of feedback and when all those business plans? It was because number one, I come in and it's like, okay, who's this crazy American that's coming into our core development team that didn't even take an appointment? What is that business plan that's so time sensitive? So they got curious, they took a look at it. And then because in the executive summary, it had all the right elements that brought that interest, what did they end up looking for after? The team. And that's where it's very important within your pitch too, is who is behind it. That's why we always say, do you invest in the jockey or the horse? And basically, some people will say, well, the horse, because the faster the horse. And the thing is, you could have a lot of pretty good, nice, purebred horses just as speedy. But in the end, it's the jockey actually who's going to have the strategy of knowing how to make that extra, the moment where to accelerate his horse to get to the finishing line. And so that's why for us, it's the team behind the project, who's going to execute it. So it's very important what type of team, who is behind it. And that was why Virgin at that time was saying, we need more to look more to that team. And that was when I needed to buy some time to make sure that I had the right people behind me. So that's where, again, I say how the executive summary or your pitch is so important, because when we also do say elevator pitch, we say, yeah, elevator pitch, because if you're in an elevator, you have to meet someone. And sometimes you think this is a far-fetched thing, or this is just some kind of term or example, but actually it does happen. And sometimes it's not just the elevator, but similar, a chance encounter in a restaurant. You find out that this person you're trying to get a hold of happens to be in the restaurant, or someone sitting next to you into a conference that you didn't expect to be there. And so it's at these moments that's why having already prepared your pitch and practiced it, and always always fine-tuning it becomes very important. Another example to share with you too is I had two entrepreneurs, students, coming, doing a program at Polytechnique, and they were doing called Print, PRYNT. Some people in France may know about them at the time. Is where, like a Polaroid, you could attach it though to your smartphone and print out your photos. And the case that you attach to it is very small and mobile. And so this is where the students came to me and said, as they were developing the project, said, hey, guess what? We met Simoncini and Grandjean and these, investors that are considered, the top super business angels of France, were saying that they were interested in putting like 200,000 euro in. And I said, okay, that's great, but for how much equity? And then so they said, for 30%. And I said, well, okay, that's quite a lot for the amount of traction. You don't have enough attraction there. That's quite a lot. And so early. And they said, yes, but they have this great network. They're very well respected within the angel community. And so I said, okay, I'm your teacher, mentor, coach, but so I leave you with the end decision, but I'm just giving you red flags that, number one, you don't really have a workable prototype yet. Number two, you don't have enough attraction to see exactly the amount of your customer base and the potential of your clients. So I said, if you actually went to an accelerator, hardware accelerator, and worked on the next version of your prototype, and maybe also because of your type of product, that you could actually go onto a crowdfunding platform like Kickstarter, you will be able to get some more traction, but at the same time show some more credibility to business angels to actually probably to get more investment and a good valuation for both sides. So they were thinking about it, and actually with these being 20-year-old, 18, 19, 20-year-old students, I figured that probably if I was in their shoes, maybe I'd want to just go for the super business angel right away. But actually they were pretty mature and said that, hey, we decided that we're going to develop the prototype at this accelerator. We're going on Kickstarter. And they went on Kickstarter, and again, it wasn't to raise money, it was actually to see who was interested and from where, what geographical location. And they were the success story because in just a week and a half, they got 1.5 million in financing on Kickstarter. And they saw also where most of the interest was coming from, like which geographical location. So after they realized, like, oh, okay, this is great because we can get some more traction, we can start working on intellectual property, we have enough, and then here, what we want to commercialize and stuff, we can get the right investors in. So this is where it was important, again, to know when is the right time to pitch, meaning that, that you definitely have some traction, some workable prototype, few customers, or to show the real forecasting of clients, the importance of that. And they've been doing very well ever since. So when us talking about business pitch, when I was saying, okay, we're always saying, okay, well, what's the pain? What's the problem? And the solution behind it is that that's where, again, is that storytelling. And that's, again, where it's important for an entrepreneur to really show basically where their passion was, why they wanted to start this, why this was important. If it's a project that is looking for impact investors, why is it so important for this social impact, or how they want to make a difference in specific communities, whether it's education, health, etc. This is this is where the real clench of that first minute, even into your 10-minute pitch, that becomes important. But at the same time, we also say that just like a business plan, is the business plan important? Yes and no. And why we say that is because business plan basically, okay, is your roadmap. It's showing where you want to go, and things may change and shift. And that's why we say also that depending on the market, depending on how specific markets or clients react to your product or service, is that you will have to adapt, change, or see where your compass is going to go. But in the end, which is also very important for investors, is the business model. And the business model, meaning also is that because in some of our investor groups at the time when there was on all the Uber, the cab, in France there was Le Cab, chauffeur privé, all of these different cab companies that were now targeting the market a couple years ago, was that they were all approaching different investment groups, wanting to show how they are different from the usual taxis, etc. And the thing was is that many of these companies were actually targeting the same market with the same, pretty much the same kind of secret sauce, how they differentiate, how they can get ahead of the market. But this is where the business model became important, was because we would see in some companies that even though it was targeting the same and companies were similar, one actually showed how they had a better forecasting model, the revenue streams, how they were making money, the amount of market share they were taking. And so that's where one business model ended up being more attractive with one particular company than another. And this is where, when we say the how and and why your business model is so important, that it's viable, because your business model is basically the heart of your company, and that is why we say also that you could have a perfect business plan showing where the market potential is, the team, the financial projections. But if your business model is not viable, then you can end up having quite a few surprises later on down the road. Also, wanted to mention to you that when we say team, and that's why we say why team is so important, is that sometimes we say you should at least have 3 on a team. And when we say we should at least have 3 on a team, sometimes also my attendees, students, entrepreneurs, say, well, yeah, because if 2 aren't agreeing on something, there's always a third, to mediate or negotiate, etc. And I said, well, maybe yes, but no. The reason why we say 3 on a team is because basically you have 3 main skills. You have the one that makes it, the one that sells it, and the one that collects it. So this is usually in the very beginning why you need these 3 main team members to be able to focus on certain aspects of the company to develop in the early stage. Usually I say to entrepreneurs too that, okay, you have, let's say, 3 team members, but you don't have enough financing to hire full-time onto to develop the team even more. So this is where we say also that an advisory board can be very valuable, is having an expert in your sector, someone who can be very marketing savvy, that's advisors who are also like mentors who can help develop and actually fill a bit of that gap in between. And we've had also in some of our angel investor groups where Normally, we don't want a one-man show or one-woman show. And some we've actually accepted their projects to get to know more, because actually they weren't completely alone, because they did have an advisory board where you would see the director of Google, the director of Facebook marketing, etc., within their ICT company. And you see that they actually are very well surrounded and they are very implicated in the project. So we had said that, okay, if you can at least find the chief technology officer to come in and help you with that platform, and you can attract them to want to take part in your company, then we'd be happy to then invest because of also your advisors and how you're surrounded by the right people with the right skills. And I remember actually in one example too, this so-called one-man show entrepreneur was saying, well, look, I don't have enough, this being more early stage, enough financing to hire someone to come in. And we said, well, if your project is so great and you can see really where the secret sauce is and the potential, you will bring in the right person who's willing to take part, whether they sweat equity, whether they're willing to put in some work and wait later. You can find the right person. And he came back 2 months later and found a perfect CTO, and who took part and was willing to give some sweat equity in the meantime to get this off, because he saw the great potential of this company. And also, word of advice also is that while you are developing your company and raising money for funding, promoting your company, always do not make the mistake of doing it serially, one at a time, because we tend to always, an entrepreneur will start focusing on raising funds and end up forgetting about the sales, about selling, promoting the company, because they've been kind of sidetracked with the funding. It's important to do things in parallel. It is a parallel process, and you need to make sure that you keep it, all of your development of the company in parallel, not serially. At the same time, with some companies and founders, they get obsessed with partners. And to be obsessed by the competitors and obsessed with partners, that do not make it a focal point, because what is, so great about two entities and people joining forces to fill each other's weaknesses. Partners are not always positive for your business. Partners are great when you feel that the both of you can come together with your strengths to give you that extra added competitive advantage, but without the partner, you're just as good. This is when you can make a solid, good partnership. But it's important to first concentrate on your sales and meeting your numbers. The same thing I'd like to bring up to you also about patents. Patents are good, it's important, but believing that patents equals defensibility, maybe for drugs, but can you really litigate yourself against a giant? And that's why you can't focus that patents are going to equal your defensibility and put too much importance on that. It's important to the whole overall picture. And to remind also that outside money, angels, VCs, 51% ownership does not mean you have control. It's an illusion. So always know that when opening up your company to investors, etc., is that you will open up to others who also have a say in the company. Where I wanted to say also on the competition, I have noticed from all the pitch presentations, conferences, accelerators from Finland to Africa to the Middle East to America, what is amazing is that as much pitch coaching as people have had, as much as these pitch coaches or business angels, advisors have said how important to best analyze your competition, you find that usually in the majority of some presentations, the competition is minimized. And I've actually seen in the past 2-3 years, to my surprise, that startups and entrepreneurs tend to dilute the importance of competition. And they will actually always say before they will be presenting to investors, yes, I know it's important, the competition. And you find out that they did not have a competitive matrix. They didn't really show how they were positioned compared to other competitors in the market. And it wasn't taken as seriously. Or you still have those that say, but there are really no competitors, where we always say, okay, if you say there's no competitors, then there must not be a need, or you're too early. But many will say, well, yes, there's competitor, but indirect. So it's not exactly the ones we're focusing. But it also gives a big red flag to us as investors that, okay, well, then they must have not done enough of their research to really see who are out there, what indirect ones, who could actually, you might be a first mover, but who actually could creep up and eat into your market share. A competitive matrix and the differentiation, I always say the micro and the macro. It's important, more like a competitive grid that shows between the companies, like where your technical specificities and etc. are more advantaged than others, and also on the macro where you see the different players in the market and where it shows that you have more of the market share and where your secret sauce is. That becomes very important on the competition side. But I will say that the two weaknesses I've seen in pitches at this moment that's surprising is the minimizing the importance of the competition, and the team not being as honest about the management gaps, and how the importance of the advisors on a board, to help fill those gaps. Now, on the management team too, when giving a pitch, usually you'll always hear from good solid startup companies, founders pitching, that we have a complementary team, and this one has these skills which I don't, and this is why we've come together, very diverse team. But actually what I like to hear from pitches is more the traction of these team members. So hearing that, okay, this marketing director, okay, he has a great background, he worked with these specific companies before starting to develop this company. It's interesting, more traction is that, okay, how many sales and what is the customer base, and what has he achieved while since this company has started? What has he achieved? If this is like a 3-year company, what has he achieved up to those 3 years? Or if you have an app, okay, how many users are they? How through those effective was he through social media in raising these numbers? By showing the traction of each team member, that becomes more interesting than just saying you're a diverse complementary team. This also gives the credibility that, hey, look, this team is pretty good, because look what he's already achieved as a marketing director or financial director or as a CEO managing the company. Look what he's achieved since the beginning of this company. As I know that we're slowly coming to a close, this is where I just wanted to come back with you again about, the main elements from your 1-minute pitch to your 10-minute is to remember again that you're giving your story, basically sharing part of your passion so that we can identify with you. As an example too, is that I coach for a lot of tech tour events. And when they have these 1-minute pitches, what was interesting too is that sometimes if you have a prop or something that someone, even in that 1 minute, can remember you by, that's memorable, it really makes a difference. Because I remember that this one entrepreneur was giving his pitch and he goes, okay, look at my hands. And he's raising his hands up. Look at my hands. He said, all of those antibacteria gels, things have side effects. And we're making these antibacterial gels that have less side effects for hospitals, etc., and different clientele. And the thing was that with there was like a good 40 entrepreneurs giving their 1-minute pitches. But with this entrepreneur, I remember walking through when there were one-on-one meetings and you see him passing by and you think, you're the hand guy. You're the hand guy. Okay. So, and, you know, start getting to conversation about the company and everything. And there's been a lot of these the different type of entrepreneurs who come in with, you know, kind of showing their identity a little bit, you know, that is very memorable and you do remember. And that's what brings you, extracts you from the majority. I wanted to also very quickly remind you too that there are some that will be pitching to investors or and may not really be needing the money right away, but they kind of interested to, you know, see what type of investors are out there, to kind of see the reaction to their projects. But some would actually, again, you see, not exactly have an ask. They would say, well, I don't really need money right now, or I'm not really looking for a partner. I'm actually just wanting to get some feedback and for develop the company. And I said, yes, but if you don't have a specific ask, and actually with all these VCs here who feel that these startups that are here because they're here to raise money. So they'll feel like that you're wasting their time, that you're just coming for feedback and not actually investor ready. And so I had advised to this entrepreneur that, look, your company is great. You may not need the money now. And it's not that he didn't need, but it was because he knew he didn't actually have enough traction. His prototype, he needed to fine tune. So he felt that it was better to wait until he had actually accomplished a few more milestones. And so he actually changed a little bit his presentation by giving an ask where I had advised to him that, you know, where you're going, that basically you'll be needing 300,000 euro or whatever in 2 years. So why you should show in your financial milestones that, okay, this is where I am, you know, this is what I'm developing, this is where I am today, but this is where I'd like to go in 6 months, in a year, etc. And where I'm going to be needing investment in the next 6 months is where I'm going to be needing you. And this is where I will be needing this amount of investment in order to be able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And he was very happy that I had given this advice before, because when the next day, when he was more precise and basically showed VCs that he will be needing this investment, but now he first wants to get some more traction, to get more credibility and to feel the market. He had VCs having so many one-to-one meetings with him because they liked the project. They could see where he would go. They could see he will execute it and he will get to the finishing line. So they said that, tell me more about it. I have some advice to give you, and we will be interested to meet with you in those 6 months when you have accomplished those specific milestones. So he had really good feedback in the sense of also VCs knowing that, yeah, this is good timing. He knows where he wants to go. And if he's obviously going to execute X, Y, and Z before. And that's why we say also that when pitching, a lot of the time, a weakness too is that entrepreneurs will go to investors when they really need the money. Some feel that, oh, I don't need it right now, all is fine, I have a pretty good cash flow, I'm not really in the need. But then you give it a year, all of a sudden they become desperate that, oh no, you know, I'm kind of feel like I'm burning through the cash. You know, I don't have, I need to increase my team. I don't have enough people to help as we're growing. We have clients, but we're not able to serve them all because we don't have enough of the right members of the team, because we don't have enough financing for these specific initiatives and actions. And by the time they get to starting to pitch to business angels, is that as much as we are trying to coordinate more with other angel networks to be able to shorten the amount of time of due diligence, and to, from the beginning of hearing the pitch to actually investing, is that you can only go so fast through, and what happens is that the entrepreneur becomes really needy at that moment, where they actually come too late. It's important to know that just as this entrepreneur, he knew he's going to be needing the financing, so he's already feeling it out. And that's why sometimes many of you might have pitched at tech tour events, at business angel network events here or there, and feel like, okay, well, I have investors that are interested in this, but it doesn't really go to the next stage or not. But we had good coaching at this event. We had some good one-on-ones. And that's why I always say to them too, is that it's important, the network of networks and trust, because even with tech tour, usually at a different event, sometimes you end up seeing the same entrepreneur 4 months later at a different event that's pitching. And what's interesting is that a lot of investors who are involved in this ecosystem happen to see them again, maybe 4 months later. And when you see this entrepreneur has actually developed and achieved specific actions and milestones and got closer to their finishing line, you see the credibility, you see they got more traction, and you see that the potential of this company and where this entrepreneur wants to go. And because you already know this entrepreneur and the trust that's being built, and also between other investors, this is what makes then, when investors decide that, hey, yeah, let's have you come and pitch to our group of investors, goes a lot faster, because the investors are already aware of the company, they're aware of how you've been developing it, and with the due diligence and knowing the team behind it, everything in the end is also about trust. And that's why you can have a really good project, great potential, showing a good return on investment, but in the end, it's all about trust. And it goes both ways, how much you can trust the angel and how much the angel can trust you. So I said, going through the elements, your storytelling, the problem, pain, the solution. And again, as I said, we're not looking for aspirin, we're looking for morphine, not a temporary solution. Your business model, a viable business model, how are you making money? Who are your clearly identified customers? Also, as I said, management team, advisory board, what is the traction of your team members since you started and developed this company? Also, again, what is your unique selling point? What is your secret sauce? What is your competitive advantage? The startup resources that will be required. Again, to say to you quickly, because I can see that we have just a few minutes left, is that a lot of entrepreneurs and founders are afraid actually to mention that they will be needing follow-up financing. So they don't want to put into their financial milestones that after the, let's say, 500,000 they need for the first round, that there's a follow-up round of 1.5 million. They feel that this might scare off investors, so they don't dare. Or you'll have some that actually will ask for less, because depending on which country, tickets might be a bit smaller, and they feel that if they're going to ask for 600,000 or more, these angels will not accept them into the network. So they feel if they ask for 600,000 less, they have more of a chance to come in. But yes, you could have a chance to come in, but in the end, it can defeat you too, and it can sometimes end up being a bittersweet moment between investor and entrepreneur. Because as a quick example, there was an investor group that of angels that a lot of them were like the grandpas and grandmas, and there was it was on baby food and frozen baby food where with nutrients, and they had good marketing, etc. They're already in a few stores, this company. And so a lot of these investors were thinking like, oh, this could be great for my grandchildren, etc. We don't usually invest in food, in food tech, or in the whole food industry, but this but look, they only need 150,000 to do this and that, and they've already have the product, etc., and they already have quite a few customers, so why not? And so they invested in, and also these entrepreneurs were thinking also that, okay, we just need this amount so that they could get some funding. But little did both sides realize that, okay, 150,000, okay, we're going to Carrefour, Auchan, Monoprix, and all these big supermarkets. Well, where your shelf is, where you want to promote, etc. I mean, they just burned through their cash. And the thing was, it wasn't that they were mismanaging or not, they just underestimated. I mean, the fact that, you're dealing with, distribution channels, you're dealing with supermarkets. So in the end, for the investors, they realized that, if we had invested more, they would have been able to have enough cash flow to be able to go through that real important moment of growth, working with these big supermarkets. And that's where the entrepreneurs, had the unfortunate experience to realize too that they should have never minimized or underestimated the amount of cash they really needed. And that's why we say, as we say, that you fail fast, fail forward, fail often. These are experiences so that the next time, knowing better. But that is why it's very important for you to know that you really need to well identify your startup resources and what you really need. And, sometimes also for investors, if they know that it might be too much of an amount for a specific angel group, sometimes even angels are willing to have it in, you take a million, put 500,000 first, and then a follow-up funding at the 500,000 after. Many like that too, because they can see what they're doing and how they're using the money, and that they are actually implementing these milestones. So that gives more trust and credibility and willingness to then, put down more the follow-up. But it is important to show, because as I said, you need to show the finishing line. You need to show what you're capable of executing. And if you're not showing that, how you're going to get to that finishing line, the thing is, it's very easy to start up a business, but to develop it, to sustain it, to have all the right resources to enable it to grow, we need to see that you definitely know where you're going to go, and you can already foresee what even contingency planning you may have to do if things don't work out the way that you thought it would. And that's where we a lot of the time say too, even before doing due diligence, for some of the entrepreneurs, is that we always say that, like an investor, we actually, sometimes entrepreneurs say, well, why are they talking about the exit strategy? Why in my presentation actually do I need to talk about pre-money valuation or valuation even? I've just started my company. Like, how would I know how much my valuation is or exits? That's I'm too early. But the thing is, it's important actually for an investor, the exit, because he wants to see that you're on the same mindset as he is. Because if one thinks that, okay, who's going to acquire you? Are you going to be big or global? Are you wanting to make 20, 30 times than what you're making now? If the entrepreneur is thinking more small, or he just wants to be the reference of the UK or France and nothing more, doesn't want to go internationally, these things have to be figured out from the beginning. And that's why in the pitch, even at early stage, that's why certain elements are important within your pitch to get the right people interested in your project and who have the same mindset. we always say that most top angels, they think about the exit the first time they meet the entrepreneur, because one wants to know that the CEO of the business they're investing in understands which companies could acquire them and why. They want to know the role they and other investors like VCs will play in an exit. And most angels know that one investment in 10 provides nearly all of the returns. So entrepreneurs, you need to start the process by thinking of your business as a product you're going to package for a very selective customer, and the buyer who will pay the highest price. And I do get entrepreneurs again who still feel that yes, but it still seems too early for me to even envision this exit. But it's important for you also to know like where you want to go, because that also helps you to know as you're developing your business. It gives you that focal point. If you're going to want to go international, you know when is the right time to start developing, to start marketing into other territories. So I leave you with your 10-minute blitz of the main, importance of elements in your presentations. Again, I was showing you this elevator pitch formula that I said again is very preschool, first grade, but it has proven to help many of my students and entrepreneurs who've ended up coming out with very good pitches, because they actually did go back to the basics. They did fill out the formula, and then they added to the formula and came out with some pretty strong pitches. And I think Emmanuel wants me to probably
stop. No. Okay. I think we can have just 10 minutes because people maybe are hungry. We can have like 10 minutes for Q&A. We already have question. If you can, you quickly listed the 3 kind of attendees that an entrepreneur has to face. One is the visual, and the second one is digital, and the third one I didn't get well. But if you can quickly list the 3 of them and explain a little bit better digital, that was the question.
Yes, when saying the 3 types of audience, is that, on the visual, which is, more on if you have your PowerPoint presentation, or it's like, someone may want to see that 1-minute video promo, kind of like you would have on a Kickstarter, is that also on the auditory, of where those who are just listening, that's where then it becomes important too, on the type of important, words and basic elements that you're focusing on within your project. That is very clear. When I had mentioned also on the aesthetic, or the, like more like a demo, showing a tech demo or something, is that sometimes even with entrepreneurs, when, I don't know if you've noticed, some, even before they start their pitch, they go and either give them like a pamphlet or a brochure about their company, or they'll actually show their prototype and start, passing it around. It's usually not the perfect time to do it, because what happens is these people get distracted, they start looking at it, and you're starting to give your 1-minute pitch or 10 minutes, and they missed it. They missed half of it because they were busy looking at the product. So it's best that usually after your presentation, when it's question and answers, that's when you show your whether it's the pamphlets or the packaging of your product or your prototype, to show afterwards, so that they can take a look at it and even ask questions about it. But then during the question and answer, which is important. But these three types of listeners. For example, me, I'm very visual. So the way I grasp things and being able to absorb the information, it has to be very visual to me. If I'm just listening, it's I don't have as much of the focus for me is not as strong for me to retain the information. And but others get distracted with the visual. So that's why I was saying that you have, like others, you know, also they have to touch and feel it. They're very kind of
more concrete people, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the other question. Is an entrepreneur, I think so, is asking if mentioning that they hired a market consumer research firm and to validate their assumption is a good thing to mention in the pitch.
That the good thing to mention the pitch is.
This is the second part of the question. Sorry, if that has a direct impact on the amount that you can get from the VC or the investors.
Okay, the first part of the question you were saying.
If is it important to mention that they hired a market consumer research firm to validate their assumption?
Yes, I think it's always important to be transparent in all of the steps you're taking within your company, and you know, that also shows that you brought in some experts to come in to validate, you know, the market.
Yeah, and do you think that this is a good way to maybe to receive more funding for? Or is it just?
I don't necessarily think it will bring you more funding, but for example, if you are able to get more solid, concrete numbers and for your company, I mean, that's all the better. But you may, within your own team, be able to come up with the same type of information. It's one or the other by having Actually, we also say whether, I mean, it's you're hiring from the outside or not, we still like most of the concrete work coming from the founders and the entrepreneur. And of course, the entrepreneur is a smart person who knows that if they're missing certain skills or, you know, obviously can't be the jack of all trades, brings in the right people to help them. So that's important, but at the same time, it's the same as, you know, when raising money. You know, angels prefer to talk with the entrepreneur and not with the middleman. They want the entrepreneur to tell them about the company and how they're raising it and etc., the money and why, and they don't want to be with the middleman.
Okay, and then we have another question asking, what do you mean with a management gap? If you can quickly.
Yes, management gap, meaning that maybe, okay, you have a CEO, you have someone, a financial director, but maybe you don't actually have a marketing and sales director at the time. Maybe you actually, you're very have a lot of online presence that's important for your company, and yet you don't have a community manager for social media. Well, these are the gaps within your team that where there's a set of skills you need in order to develop the company. So if you're missing that marketing guru, that real important marketing director to be able to help get you your numbers and sales, etc., then what's important is that if that particular person is missing, yet you haven't found the right one, that's where it's good to have mentors on your advisory board, to have someone who could be who is a marketing expert within your sector, who can help in a company until you get the right person to join the team. But as I said, always remember that usually when you are going to start pitching to investors should have at least minimum 3. And like I said, you know, who makes it, who sells it, you know, who collects it, the 3 main skills.
Okay, good. And then we have another question. If you can provide a business example when you use the killer pitch, your killer pitch technique. I don't know if it's you or maybe one of your entrepreneurs, probably.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually it was bit of my example was the Virgin. When I was actually wanting to have the appointment with Richard Branson, because you see, it was also one of those off-the-cuff chance encounters. The fact that, of course, I didn't make an appointment. I was young, you know, just thinking going to London, I can drop by the company and see what happens. But still, again, you see, I believe you have to go with your, you know, intuition and to go sometimes with your spontaneity. But that's why at the same time, though, I knew exactly, you see, what the company was, you see what the solution I was giving, what you know, made this an advantage and beneficial to Virgin. And so I had all those right elements, you know, which were basically in that executive summary that they read in just like a minute when I had left. But you see, for that corporate development team to just take 3 minutes when I went in there and left, and already start asking the questions and wanting to further and sending me emails, seeing how they could get in touch with Richard Branson. I mean, that was actually got me embarked on my whole entrepreneurial adventures, on getting more interested also on the angel investing side, etc. So that's and at the same time, it was, as I said, as I was showing you in the formula and the elements, you know, specific elements showing where that secret sauce is, etc. And again, this wasn't done on purpose, but because I just happened to walk in there and unexpectedly, and them thinking that I was a crazy American, you know, from Paris, just coming in with no meeting, got them kind of interested. Who is this? That's why I believe also, you know, if you know what you want, you have a good project, you've been working on being able to know how to pass the message, and again, you have to be authentic to yourself. But that's what makes it powerful, because you can have, I have heard pitches where they are like perfect. I mean, they have every element in that pitch, you know, like for example, they follow the formula, they grew on it, storytelling, the ask, etc. But it sounded like so rehearsed and so like almost as if they were an actor giving their pitch, and you felt it was less authentic. And that's why it's important to be true to yourself. Because as another example, like as Emmanuel was saying also, if there's another example, was that there were 2 women entrepreneurs, and it was in the fashion industry, and they were doing really well and got their first angel investing thing. And but then they were starting to scale up. So they were starting to pitch to VCs. And and I was there at that pitching when they were starting to use VCs as their target group for the next round of financing. And the project was great and all, but there was something I felt was missing. Actually, I couldn't understand really, like, why did they actually decide to focus on this part of the industry and propose this, and like, where did it all originate from, really? And I had asked them that, how did this all, you know, originate? Why did you decide, you know, focusing particularly on this aspect of the industry? And then they were saying, well, you know, because my mother, etc., this, and giving a story. So I said, oh, well, it's a pity you didn't kind of mention that in the beginning, because it gives more form, and then it makes you understand more about the importance, you know, of the problem and the solution you found, and where your expertise comes from, and the people who surrounded you. And she said, well, the VCs were saying it's all about the bottom line. We don't care about the storytelling anymore. It's all about the numbers. You already proved your traction. But the thing is that still people have to feel that there's like an origin to the story, and that, you know, even when you're scaling up, it's still important to keep your story. You know, a lot of serial entrepreneurs, you'll see that the companies that have been successful, and still to this day, their story remains the same.
Okay, and Audra, I think just last question is who should present the business? Is the co-founder with tech background, or the cool, let's say, cool partner, cool team member?
Well, you see, that's the thing where I think sometimes you can, founders of the company can get into trouble, is that one may feel that, hey, my partner is much more, has much more stage presence, etc. So it's better that he presents. No, you both have to practice and both perfect your pitches together. And sometimes it's good also to share the pitch presentation. But sometimes, again, you see, you might be in a specific event or chance encounter where you're not with your partner and it's just you. But what I've seen, and is a real pity, is that there have been some events where luckily there were coaching before the day of the event with some of these entrepreneurs. But one was, okay, the chief technology officer, so very engineer, very into technology, it's all about the product. Or like biotech, oh, you know, everything is about the you know, the cure, and you know, this is what we have, you know, everything about the product. And they were saying, look, my partner who always presents, he's not here, so you know, it's the best I can do. And I remember why I was so happy, why it's great to have coaches and mentors, was that this chief technology officer, I said, like, look, he didn't show up, but tomorrow you're gonna have to pitch. And so you're gonna have to throw away that paper you have in front of you, and you're going to have to, you know, present with some more, you know, of your own storytelling, and you know, to work on more presence and, you know, the different aspects of the company. And he was saying, well, look, I really don't have that kind of stage presence. And I said, no, but you can work on it and, you know, do the best you can for the next day, because this is your project too. And if we feel that you're not able to present this company and to show where you want to make it go, you're still also one of the co-founders, you know, with vision and strategy. And that's why we invest in the team. So if both are not on the same, you know, wavelength, that makes us wonder too, you know, like, how can they come together and work solidly on a common vision? And actually some coaches were even saying, well, look, Audra, I do not think this person can create a miracle before, because besides even that chief technology officer, I had another one where it was on a product targeting the horse rider and the horse, and I couldn't understand. And he was actually 65 years old, and he was more of the, again, on the product part, but he was the origin of the idea too. But he had someone who, you know, was more into marketing and sales, and actually did all the presentations and pitching for the investors. So, and he was really reading everything from his paper. And I said to him too, it was the day before their presentation, that you need to put it away. And I found out that actually he never told about his storytelling, that actually he was a famous horse rider. And I was thinking, gosh, why didn't you tell that? Because that shows all the credibility of this project and how you understand it. And he knew all of the main, you know, top specialists in the field, and which was never said. And even the coaches too that were with me were saying, look, you cannot produce a miracle the day before. Well, the thing was that these two examples, the next day I said, there's no sense in you even presenting to these VCs, investors, or anything, because you're not going to grasp their attention because you're not pitching properly, and you might as well take advantage of the opportunity you have. You have nothing to lose. And well, interesting enough, where many were skeptical that these two were not, it was just not going to be possible. Actually, I guess they were really pitching and practicing all night, because the next day it was like night and day. And the guy who used to be a horse rider, etc., was giving his storytelling, and he didn't have that paper, and he just, presented because he knew all the elements and stuff. He just didn't give confidence in himself to do it. And and also that chief technology officer, I mean, it was like amazing. He was so not so techno and so into the technical aspects of it, and it sounded like a completely different person. And these two people actually came to me and thanked me, because they said, the reason we actually went out of our comfort zone, they said, it wasn't because, we didn't feel that the VCs would invest in us, but we just couldn't face seeing your face, knowing that we didn't stand up to the challenge. So we would have been actually ashamed. So we forced ourselves. But they said that because I actually had forced them to get out of their comfort zone, they said nobody's ever really done that for them. And they actually didn't realize that they were capable of giving a pretty good pitch. And that's why it's really about belief in yourself. That's why it's so important, the storytelling, how important the project is to you. And you see, that's where you can feel it, and where the DNA of the project is. And that CTO also was thinking, hey, I think I pitched better than my partner. So it's very important that all team members are capable of presenting and pitching, and because no matter where you are, even if you have one that usually does it more than the other, you don't know where you will be. And sometimes also investors will ask other team members on purpose specific aspects of the company and things. And if they look a little bit lost, or say, oh, well, we have an R&D department that will, get back to you. Well, that makes us a lot less convinced that this team is going to take us to the finishing line.
Thank you, Audra. Very nice story.
This is super. Thank you.
If I may, this is Candace Johnson. I just want to, I've been, going through the chat, and I just want to apologize. As many of you know, Zoom has changed a number of features, and we're still getting used to these new changes. So I want to thank Audra for having been flexible. I want to thank our lovely audience also for having been so flexible and putting up with us as we get reused to Zoom. So thank you all, and Audra, thank you for such a great presentation as well.
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you, Candace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Candice, the content was very good, so it didn't bother us. The
content with Audra is always fantastic, but I just want to say that and really thank you for the invitation. We'll be great the next time.
Emmanuel?
Yes.
And just one last thing for those who are still online is that to leave you with these are usually like the 7 laws of presentation skills, is that 1, audience is sleep. 2, repetition is death. 3, feelings are a poor indicator of how you are doing. 4, the job is to get them to want more of what you've got. 5, when you're on, you're in charge. 6, there is always a message. And 7, passion is mandatory.
Okay, good. And with these 6 important points, I would say that we can finish this awesome first webinar in the series of the SpaceUp project. I would like to invite all of you to look at our website, space-academy.eu. There you can look at the coming webinars for entrepreneurs. And please also check our EBAN.org website. We have many other webinars coming, and the next one is tomorrow. And yeah, I think this is, thank you, Audra, again. Really, really great. I really like your expertise and all your examples. They're really rich of insights. And
thank you. I mean, it's tough for me because I'm used to interactive. I like to
Yes.
exchange with others. I like to get feedback from,
Yes.
you know, during the workshop. But hey, you know, this is how we have to adapt to this pandemic.
It's terrible. You don't have this face interaction. Webinars are really challenging. And you can, yes, indeed. This missing part, this missing human part is the most difficult part. And this is why people should attend events, create connection, meeting people, know the feeling. And yeah, anyway, now we are in this situation and we can obviously take advantage of having you in Paris, but us at home, in the comfortable place.
So if I also may just say for all of our participants, the SpaceUp program is, you know, you might say, oh, it's just for space entrepreneurs, but actually it came about as a result of the fact that unfortunately, so many space entrepreneurs always just talk about technology. They usually had no experience with marketing, with finances, with presentations, etc. And so even though it's called SpaceUp, it is actually for all entrepreneurs to, you know, to raise the level of pitching, of business plans, etc. for entrepreneurs. And since space is such a, you know, a technical sector, then the people, it's the Fraunhofer Institute from Germany, it's EBAN, it's, you know, the Italian Space Agency, they got together and they said, we will help all entrepreneurs, you know, get a leg up. And so indeed, we're so happy that Audra could be in our first webinar on this. So, okay, with that, I will promise I will shut up, but since I'm a space person, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Candace. And for all of you that doesn't know that, Candace is our EBAN President Emeritus. She is a great entrepreneur and she has a very good track record. Probably we will do a webinar also with her. So stay tuned. So hello everybody and enjoy the next, the day and your family and your home.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the session. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.